Trudeau Show.
I am exposing the corruption in government and in major multinational corporations. We're telling you the things that they don't want you to know that will make your life better.
Kevin Trudeau here. There we go. Do we have applause? I didn't hear the applause. We have applause. Kevin Trudeau here. Everything they don't want you to know about. Thanks for joining me. Buckle up. We have a fast-paced, amazing show today. I promised last week that I would talk about the Globalist Agenda from being a former insider. Now look, many of you listen to a lot of podcasts. Maybe you watch a lot of shows on YouTube. Maybe you watch Fox News if you're in America, MSNBC if you're in America, maybe CNN if you're in America. If you're around the world, you're watching whatever the major news broadcasts are on television. Many of you listen to your favorite podcast host or your YouTube show host. And I've researched and watched many of these people, and some of them have millions and millions of followers on YouTube. They've been around for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Some of them have been around for more than 10 years broadcasting. Some of them around for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And they have millions, sometimes even tens of millions of followers. And every week they get millions of viewers from all around the world. Obviously, they're saying something that people have an interest in. And one of the major things that a lot of these, we'll call them conspiracy theorists or alternative news sources, share is the message of doom, the message of the globalist horrible agenda and the horrible globalists. And when I listen to these individuals talk, the question always is, where are they getting their, quote, information? And if you watch many of these shows, and when you talk to the producers of the show, and you talk to the hosts of the show, all they're trying to do is make as much money as they can. The hosts, all they're trying to do is make as much money as they can. It's called sensationalistic journalism. They have to get a thumbnail with this really eye-catching picture and a real eye-catching phrase so that you click on it. And they want to get as controversial as possible in the message, triggering emotions within you. And this makes them a lot of money. And you may not know this, but the research that goes into reviewing the show, and they actually watch what phrases, what words trigger emotional response in the viewer. This is what's given to the host, so the next time he'll use that word or use that phrase again. They look at the subjects. Does this subject get clicks? Does this subject get viewers? This is manipulation at the highest level. Many times they talk about a globalist agenda. And they're trying to elicit fear in you. They're trying to create an enemy. These hosts, in many cases, are very well-intentioned, by the way. They don't even know they're doing this. It's almost like they're doing it subconsciously, and they're just doing it because they think they're trying to get a bigger reach. So they know that if I use this phrase or if they use this particular subject, they'll get more viewers, and they think that's going to be good because then the viewers will hear their message, and, that's good for the viewer. Although when you start watching the show or start listening to the podcast, and then at the end you feel crappier than when you started, you don't feel empowered, you feel powerless, you feel helpless, you feel angry, you feel abused, taken advantage of. At the end of this show, you're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel better than when you do right now. You're going to think, man, I got what it takes. I'm being told what's going on behind the curtain, and now I can come out of my trance. I can see things for what they really are. I know how the magic trick is done. I can now use the tools that Kevin has given me to live a better, more productive, happier, more successful life. You're going to be empowered because you control your reality. It doesn't matter what the globalists are doing, what the government's doing, or what your boss is doing. It doesn't matter what the global warming is going up or down. Back in the 70s, it was global freezing. Global cooling is what they call it. Front page of the Time magazine. Global cooling. The Earth is cooling, headed toward another ice age. And then when that didn't catch a lot of interest, then they changed it to global warming. And look, at the end of the day, the temperature of the Earth and the climate of planet Earth has changed radically before man was around. You know, we had ice ages before man was around. Now, whether or not man's doings are making it go a little faster or not, that's a debate. But sure, the climate's changing. It has always changed on planet Earth. But the point is, things that are given to you to trigger emotion and to make the hosts of these podcasts get more viewers and more subscribers and more views and make more money. Okay, and someone said, "Oh, Kevin, aren't you doing the same thing?" I don't get paid for this. Everybody here knows. I don't get any money. I don't get a penny by doing this show. Not one penny. And if you don't understand that, go to the Kevin Trudeau Fan Club website and you can read about it. But I don't get a single penny for doing this. Nothing. All right, they gave me the mug. I got the mug. This is a prop, so I can use the mug. But I can't take it home. All right. So the globalist agenda. When you talk or listen to these people on YouTube, and there's so many of them that you're just dialed into, ask yourself, where are they getting their information from? So if you talk to the producers of the show and you go behind the scenes, let me tell you where they get the information. They get the information by having a producer, an assistant producer, an associate producer go through a news aggregate website. And they just pull articles. And they're pulling articles based on subjects that they know you have an interest in or creates an emotional response in you. So they'll punch in Globalist Agenda, and they'll pull all these articles that are coming in from mainstream news sources, the Associated Press, world news organizations from around the world, whether it's the BBC in the UK or other news organizations. Maybe they'll pull information from other people's websites, other hosts, and find out, what did Tucker Carlson say? What did Alex Jones say? What did Russell Brand say? Blah, 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 blah. And they'll look at all these, what was on the Y files? What was this? What was that? And they'll pull this information together. They'll collate it, the associate producer, the assistant producer, or the producer. They'll collate it and give to the host all these talking points. Then the host reviews it in 10 minutes. And then says, "Hey, you're watching the greatest show on podcast, YouTube, and I'm here to tell you about how evil these sons of bitches are. I'm telling you, they're unbelievable. They're so bad. Let me tell you what's going on. I'm telling you what's happening. This is what's happening. And let me show you this clip, and let me show you what this..." And all they're doing is they're regurgitating what's all over the internet. So if they find somebody, someone, some individual, maybe even a government official that said something, they'll pull a quote out of context and they'll say, "Here, look at this. Here's the Secretary of Defense, and he said this." And they'll pull a quote out of context. And I've seen this so many times. I mean, I could sit down with you and take a couple of these shows and break down everything that's being said and show you that nothing coming out of the person's mouth is from his own personal knowledge and his own personal experience. Think about that. So when they talk about the globalist agenda, and one of the things in the globalist agenda that has been talked about for over 20 years as absolute fact, the globalists want to wipe out 1 billion or 2 billion people on planet Earth. It's about population control. Not only population control, it's about depopulating the globe. I got a picture here of an internment camp. Look at all the body bags. They're getting ready, folks. And they're using this, and they're using that, and they're using this. You're gonna be seeing mass millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people die because the globalists want to depopulate the globe. They've been talking about this for 20 years. They show pictures in America of FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Relief Organization. They show these camps, they call them internment camps, with boxes which they say are coffins, but they're not, but they look maybe, I mean, it's a stretch. But they go, look, they're buying all these coffins. They're getting ready. They're buying all these body bags. They're getting ready. Population control. You hear this all the time. Time out. If you were in charge of FEMA in the United States, or whatever the organization is in your country, wherever you're watching, and your job is to prepare for catastrophes, such as a nuclear bomb going off and 1 million or 2 million people dying in a day, that's your job. You need to prepare. Let's say there's some absolute unfathomable disaster or catastrophe where there's 10,000 dead in a day. In America, 20,000, 100,000, 1 million. You need to prepare for that. What are you going to do? Nothing? You're saying, okay, if that happens, what's the plan? Where are we going to put the bodies? Maybe let's get something like a fenced-in area. We can have some staff there. Maybe because we can't bury everybody. And if we start cremating them, then they'll say we're Nazis. So let's get some boxes, maybe some body bags, and let's prepare for something that we hope and pray never, ever happens. Now, does that make more logical sense than the evil stupidity that people have been saying for 20 years? Actually, it's 30 years. Before the internet, there were books written on how the globalists are going to, not just want, but are planning on and are going to wipe out tens of millions, hundreds of millions, over 1 billion people in a short period of time to depopulate the planet. We've been hearing about it for all this time, but yet these really smart, powerful globalists are so bad at getting anything accomplished that they're so bad at getting anything accomplished. Joe, you didn't move the camera. Joe's over there. I don't know what he's doing. I'm looking over here. The light's over there. They're so bad. The globalists are so bad that the population has continued to increase every single year for the last 100 years. Let's take the last 5 years. Population has increased every single year. Let's take the last 10 years. Population has increased every single year. Last 20 years, last 30 years, last 40 years, last 50 years. The population on planet Earth goes up every single year. So where is the population control? So here's the point. The point is, who do you listen to? Listen to somebody who has what you want and has been where you are. Listen to somebody who knows firsthand from personal experience. Somebody who knows as opposed to somebody who just knows about something. And I can guarantee you, 99% of the people on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on the internet, that are writing books that are all over Amazon, on Globalist Agenda, have no personal experience. They've never been at a Bilderberg meeting. And some of you don't even know what a Bilderberg meeting is. Many of these hosts don't even know. Many of them do. They talk about it because they know about Bilderberg, but they don't know Bilderberg because they haven't been in the meetings. They haven't been one of the invited guests. So let me just talk about Bilderberg for a second, because this is the ultimate group on global domination, world government, one world currency, the globalists. What is the Bilderberg Group? First off, it was called Bilderberg because their first meeting was held in a hotel called Bilderberg. And so today, every year, this group meets someplace in the world. I was there when it was at Rotterdam in Germany at the Sea Hotel, the Sea Hotel Uberfahrt in Rotterdam, Germany, south of München in Bayern, Germany. And I've been at other ones as well. Bilderberg invites people who are in secret societies such as Skull and Bones, which is out of Yale University in the United States, that are members of the Bohemian Grove, which is in California in the United States, and other societies that are operating around the globe. And they're all tied in, but they're unique, and they're separate to that country or that region or that culture or that race or that religion. But these secret societies operate with people who are in positions of power and influence, usually by bloodline. They're the privileged elite class. They usually don't allow people in these societies from outside of the privileged elite class, because the elites and globalists are incredibly racist. And by definition, that means they think that certain bloodlines are superior to others. Certain bloodlines should rule the world, and other bloodlines should be more slaves, and basically do what we're told. We'll talk about that at another time. That's a very interesting topic. So this Bilderberg group takes the most powerful, influential people on planet Earth. For example, the head of the Federal Reserve in the United States, the ministers of the Treasury of various countries, the head of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, the head of the World Bank, the head of oil companies, the chairman or presidents of oil companies, the presidents and chairmen now of Facebook and Google and internet companies. So who has a huge controlling influence on the planet? Supreme Court judges, politicians, business leaders, people that are in positions of power and authority. The heads of media. Usually it's the head of every major news organization in the world. They go to Bilderberg. At the Bilderberg meeting, it is more influential than the G8 meeting, where you take the prime ministers and presidents of the 8 big countries. They also have a meeting in Davos, Switzerland, every year. And this is reported on in the news. So you hear about the G8, that's all over the news. You hear about Davos, where the elites get together. That's a very powerful meeting as well. But every year, more powerful people meet for a weekend, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 days. Sometimes there's meetings going on privately before the main event starts. I was there for 2 weeks. This happens every year, and it's never reported on. Now, there are some guys on YouTube or Rumble or different platforms that physically went to where the meeting was held with their cameras outside the hotel, and they were showing Prime Minister, President of IMF, President of NBC, President of ABC, President of CBS, President of CNN, President of Fox, all these powerful media moguls, former president, Supreme Court judge. And they're like looking at all these people and going, there's more wealth in this room. There's more powerful people in this room. And it's not reported on in any newspaper in the world. It's like it doesn't exist. Well, number one, if all the media people are there, they're controlling what goes out. What happened to the independent journalist? If there's an independent journalist at the New York Times or the London Times or the Sydney Times or the Los Angeles Times, if there's an independent journalist, how come they're not writing about it? You know why? Because they want to keep their job. They want to keep their job. That's why they're not writing about it. They want to keep their job. So think about this. All the heads of the top media are at Bilderberg. So they're controlling. You can now see that independent journalists are not independent. The message is controlled by upstairs. We heard Jeff Zuckerberg. We heard the president of NBC. I believe it was NBC. It was either NBC or ABC. No, sorry, it was CNN. We heard the tape of him talking to all of his executives and journalists, telling them this is what you are going to be reporting on the news. And it's all anti-Trump. You are going to be telling everyone that Trump colluded with Russia to win the election. You hear him say, whether or not this is factual, he doesn't say find the truth. He says, this is what you're going to be saying. You're being given the talking points. You're given the phrases that we know hit the emotions, and you're going to repeat the party line if you want to keep your job. So we know that. But Bilderberg is not talked about anywhere. So you have people in the alternative media talk about it. I haven't heard people even mention it much at all anymore in the last 10 years, really. But this is an annual meeting where the future of the world is discussed. These are the globalists. So if you're at a secret society meeting like Skull and Bones Society, and there's only been a handful of non-bonesmen, they call them bonesmen, if you've actually been to Yale University and been invited to Skull and Bones, like President Bush, John Kerry, former Secretary of State, other people, Supreme Court judges, you get invited to the island where the Bones people get together. Only a handful of people have been invited to that island who are not Bonesmen. But when you're there, they talk about the globalist plan. Because the people who are in Skull and Bones are in positions of power all over the world. So when you look at that organization and you look at Bohemian Grove in California, it's the same thing. The people that are invited there to be members, former President Nixon, former US President Reagan, Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State, all these people were there. Former President of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. We were together there and at Bilderberg. These powerful people talk about the globalist plan. So the point is this. When you listen to someone who is talking about something that they know about instead of that they know from personal experience, please beware. You're not getting the true information. I remember watching a golf match one time. And I was with a professional golfer. And the guy was talking about Jack Nicklaus. They were showing an old clip of Jack Nicklaus playing a round of golf. And as Jack was lining up his shot, the announcer at the time, live, said, now what Jack is thinking about is he's thinking about that he wants to lay the ball up on the left side of the fairway, and he's thinking about he doesn't want to be right because that's where the water is. Jack Nicklaus saw this clip, and I think it was on the Johnny Carson show or something. Jack Nicklaus said, that wasn't what I was thinking about. How does this guy, watching me golf, how does he know? What is he, a mind reader? He's telling the world what I'm thinking about? That's not what I was thinking about. Not at all. The only thing I was thinking about is hitting the ball in the middle of my club face. That's all I was thinking about. Because once I lined it up, my only thought was put the ball in the middle of the club face. Everything will be perfect. I was thinking about I want to be on the left side of the fairway. I wanted to avoid. The guy doesn't know what I'm thinking about. This happens all the time. Some idiot will be on TV or on a podcast and go, well, what they're thinking about or what they want to do. They don't know. They have no idea. None whatsoever. Zero. None whatsoever. So, These people that you're listening to don't know. They only know about, and guess what? They're wrong. The globalist agenda is, number one, not about population control. I've never been in a meeting, and I've been in some of the highest ones, where the goal was to depopulate the world. Not one. First off, that would be counterproductive, because if there's less consumers in the world, that means companies have less people to sell product to. It doesn't make any logical sense. Every country wants to increase their population. That's why they want migrants to come in, because the people aren't having enough kids in their countries. They're saying our population isn't growing fast enough. We need more people to come in. That way we can sell more products. We have more customers to sell more products to, and we can make more money. Think about that. Think about it. So the globalist agenda is not about population control at all. Now, I'm going to tell you what the globalist agenda is. Now, there's two parts of this. The first part is what their agenda is, and you're going to be amazed. The second part is how they want to achieve it. How they want to achieve the end result goal. This is why I left the Brotherhood, because I disagreed with the methodology of achieving the goal. I agreed with the goal, but I disagreed with the methodology. So what is the goal? The goal of these evil globalists, the goal is, number one, to wipe out hunger and starvation and poverty across the globe. If you look at planet Earth, this planet is in a deep situation where there are billions of people that go to bed hungry every single night. If you have love and compassion for someone, you say you're a religious person, you believe in Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, then why don't you love people without condition and without exception? There are people that are starving all across the world. Where's your compassion for them? Do they have a right to be happy? Yes. Compassion is knowing that everyone has a right to be happy. They shouldn't be going to bed hungry. There are billions of people on planet Earth that are going to bed hungry. They don't have enough food. People die every day in the millions around the world because of starvation. And we all know that there is plenty of food on planet Earth to feed everyone. It's all a matter of distribution and economics. So the globalists are, how can we stop starvation? Now, why do they want to stop starvation, hunger, and poverty? Because they just love everyone? There's two reasons. Number one, we are all extensions and expressions of God. We're all God's children, whether you're a Muslim or whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Hindu or whether you're anything, I guess, except an atheist. You believe that you have come from a loving God, right? A universal consciousness, Krishna consciousness, Yahweh, Hashem, if you're Jewish. Think of the term, the Atman, coming from India. All these different terms used throughout centuries about the one universal consciousness, infinite intelligence. Every single person should be loved. No one should be dying of starvation, poverty, or hunger. Think about that. So these individuals who are globalists, they're not evil wanting that everyone suffers. They are at their core, just as pure as you. And even though they may do things from time to time that may seem ruthless or brutal, they love people at the end of the day. And you are going, Kevin is not telling us how bad these people are. Kevin, look what they're doing to the food supply. They're putting all these poisons and toxins into food. You said it yourself in the book Natural Cures. You go watch the TV show on History Channel, which is The Food That Made America. The Food That Made America. And you watch the story of Mr. Kraft, who invented American cheese, which is not cheese. It's hydrogenated oil. And today, hydrogenated oil we know is a trans fat, causes arterial sclerosis, hardening of the arteries, blockages, throws off your hormones, makes you fat. It's terrible. But when you go back and say, why did Mr. Kraft invent American cheese? It wasn't, I want to create a product so that all my customers will die. No, he said there are people that like cheese, but cheese spoils. How can I manufacture a cheese that tastes delicious, that is inexpensive, so that people who don't have a lot of money can get cheese, enjoy the taste, and I can make their life better, and at the same time make a profit? It's a fair exchange. And this is why he created American cheese. And you go through all of the things that were produced. None of them there was an evil intent. Just look at the real history. There was no evil intent on oil. There was no evil intent on cigarettes. There was no evil intent. If you're selling cigarettes, do you think, how can I make my cigarette kill my customer faster? No. You want the guy to live as long as possible so he can smoke till he's 150. You're pissed off when he dies of lung cancer at 72. You wish that didn't happen because you want to sell him more product. So the point is, there's no evil intent there. So these globalists, number one, they do have compassion. And you look at the amount of money they give to real charities, like homeless shelters and things. It's mind-boggling what these evil people do to help mankind with their own cash. And there's another side of the coin to that, and I get it, but you haven't heard that side of the coin. So at least consider that these globalists, whether it's John D. Rockefeller, who's gone now, of course, J.P. Morgan, these are two American industrialists. But whatever country you're in, if you're in Japan, look at Toyota, Mr. Toyota. If you're in Germany, look at anybody in a leader in Germany, or if in France, look at a business leader or a politician. So first, globalist agenda. Eliminate hunger, starvation, and poverty. All right, Kevin, let's assume that that's true. That sounds pretty good. What's the second one? The second globalist agenda is, now you're not going to believe this, but it's absolutely true. We need to eliminate war. We need to stop all wars from happening all over the world. And you're thinking, no, Kevin, I heard about the industrial military complex. I heard that everybody wants war. They want war because that way they can sell more guns, sell more ammunition, sell more materials. When they stockpile all this ammo, they got to use it before they buy more. That's true. Absolutely true. But they make money in many other ways as well. Yes, you can be a war profiteer and make tons of money with wars. And there are people that love wars going on. No question about it. It is profitable. Wars are profitable for two reasons. Number one, anybody who's making anything for the war, whether it's clothing for the soldiers, ammunition, military devices, tanks, guns, ammo. What about the food to feed the soldiers? What about all the infrastructure needed for the soldiers when they're moving around fighting wars? It's very profitable. But there's another part. If there's an invasion and a country is leveled and wiped out, at the end of the war, guess what has to happen? Everything's got to be rebuilt. And so companies like in the United States, Halliburton, the Carlyle Group, owned by the Bushes, they're like, please have another war. and then end it so we can go in, get the contract through bribes and payoffs, and then we'll go in and rebuild everything with money from the government, make a huge profit, the stock goes up, everybody's happy. Make sense? So yes, wars can be very profitable in the short term. But in the long term, the goal is, wouldn't it be better if we just eliminated war? Why would that be better when there's all this profit in war? Because if there is no war and there's prosperity, let's say after the Second World War, did America enjoy tremendous prosperity during the 50s and the 60s? Yes. So if a country is prospering without war, it's more profitable because now you have more consumers, more people that have more money to spend on more goods and services. It's actually more profitable to not be in war than to be in war. It's profitable to be in war, but only for a small group. It's more profitable for a much larger industrial group to not be in war, but to have prosperity. So second is no wars. Third, now we get into some areas of, all right, so I'm not too sure now about these globalists. I like the first two things. Let's assume it's true. But Kevin, I'm not really convinced yet. I'm really not convinced that they want no war, and I'm really not 100% convinced that they want to eliminate starvation, hunger, and poverty. I mean, after all, I've heard these guys on podcasts and YouTubes for decades talk about population control. And you're saying the exact opposite. Well, I'm the only guy who's in the meetings. And what I'm saying makes more logical sense than what they're saying. And if they were right, how come it hasn't happened yet? When is it going to happen? They've been talking about it for 35 years. It's ridiculous. Okay. But here's the third goal of the globalists. And now we start getting into a little touchy area. The globalists want three classes in the world, three classes of people. If you go back to the Vedas in India, they had what was called a caste, C-A-S-T-E, caste system. And the caste system had the following classes. The lowest class was called the poverty class, the peasant class. These people didn't have a very powerful brain. The peasants we used to call like a simpleton, somebody who's a little slow mentally. The village idiot. The peasants were like, yeah, we need to go milk the cows today to get some milk. So adding 2 plus 2 was a little bit of a challenge. The peasant class were a little slow. They were peasants. They had no education. They couldn't read or write. They lived a simple life, a simple existence, and they were the peasants. And peasants married other peasants and begot more peasants. A slow person marries another slow person. They have children. That person is slow. They don't have a high IQ. By the way, this is what the globalists said back then. I'm giving you a history lesson. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm giving you a history lesson based on the fact. Back then, this is what the belief was. So the first class was the peasant class. The second class, what was called the merchant class. These people were a little smarter than the peasants. They had a little drive. They had a little motivation. They wanted a little bit of stuff. They wanted to, hey, if I work hard and I start a business, I'm a merchant. If I open up a tea company and go harvest some tea and hire some peasants to cultivate my tea, I can put it together and I can put together a service to the community. I can offer value to people. And I can even sell tea to the peasants because they like tea. And I'll sell it to the other merchants. So the merchants were traders. These people had a little more smarts, if you will, than the peasants. They made more money. They were a little smarter, a little sharper. Some merchants made a lot of money. Some didn't make. They all made better than the peasants. They were a higher class, and they married people within the merchant class. And it was rare, but it happened where some of these classes intermarried with another class, but not very often. Above them was the warrior class. These were the fighters. The warrior class were big and strong physically. They weren't necessarily as smart as the merchants, but they were big and strong, and they could protect the community from invaders. So the warrior class would actually use peasants to fight the war. The warrior class were the leaders of the wars. And if a war happened, the warrior class would go out there and get recruits by conscription. They just said, "You're coming with us." And here's a spear. So the peasants are like, "Okay," because they're a little simple. "Okay. What do I do?" "Stab the guy who's trying to kill you." "Okay." And they want to survive, so they did it. Then they went back, if they lived, maybe without an arm. They went back to the peasant class and, started milking the cow again with one hand because they only had one arm. So you had the warrior class. Now the warrior class were also the royalty, because the warrior class, the warriors were the kings. The warriors basically were in charge because the governors, the people that were in charge of a community, the kings, the royalty, the governors, the people that ruled everything, the politicians they didn't have a politician class. They were the warrior class, and they were the rulers. The rulers were warrior class because the community needed to be protected. So when you think about the original reason for government, it was about protecting the community from invaders. Something to think about when you think about the real reason for government. But there was another class. This class was actually above the warrior class. These were the smartest people, and these were in the caste system they're called Brahmins. These were the religious class, the godly men, the philosophers. These were the smartest guys, but they were kind of slow and fat physically because they read all day long and they philosophized all day long and they pontificated and they had intellectual conversations with one another. So these were the eggheads, the educators, the brilliant people, and the godly one. They were all in one category, whether it was a philosopher, but they were all in the old days, all priests, all religious. In ancient Egypt, they were the priests. But these were also the most educated people, the ones who could read and write, the ones who could think intellectually, logically, analytically. And they were also the ones who were the religious. Because back then, intellect and religion were not opposed to each other. If you had a high intellect, you clearly were religious or spiritual because you understood the connection between the spiritual realm. Today, the intellects are the atheists in many cases. Isn't that interesting? So back then you had those castes. Okay. So throughout history, we have had classes. The globalists today want effectively three main classes of people. Class number one. We're not going to call them peasants, but they're actually called the followers. That's the word used. They're not slaves. It's called the followers. The largest group of people on planet Earth, the globalist elite want, is a group of people that will just follow orders. do what they're told. Not live in poverty, not sleep on a dirt floor, to live in a nice abode with running water and electricity, have nice clothes, have money, and be a consumer. Now, they also want them to be heavily in debt so that they're effectively a slave and can't get out of that rut. But they want this huge, the majority of people on planet Earth, they just want a bunch of followers who are in a trance, but all living a decent life. No poverty, no starvation. They want reduction in crime, obviously, that's part of it. So that's what they want. That's the biggest class. This group of people that will not revolt, that will not resist, that will basically work, earn money, do what they're told, think how they're told to think, live their dreary life, have a couple kids, buy a bunch of stuff, go into debt, and then die. No problem. The second group, the second class, is that merchant class. And the merchant class are the business owners. These are the people that can actually make money, that can start a business, that can be a little proactive. Maybe they can think a little bit on their own. But because they're enjoying the stuff of life, because they're very materialistic, because they're very connected to the world of duality, they like sex, they like football, they like sports, they like nice clothes, they like fancy cars, they like go to nice restaurants, they like status, they like stuff. They want a big house, they like stuff. And so they'll go out there and work to make stuff. And they know that if they rock the boat, they won't have the stuff. So they go, look, I enjoy the stuff. So I'm not gonna rock the boat. So even though they're not followers, they actually do think on their own. They go along with the program. Think about that. They go along with the program. Like when I was brought into the room and I was told by the government, this is 25 years ago, 30 years ago now, 30 years ago, I was brought in by the government 30 years ago and said, Swiss bank account, $10 million cash, never write another book, we never want to hear your name ever again. Live a nice life. Now in today's money, that's like $100 million. Make a choice. That was the deal that was given to me. You're leaving the Brotherhood? No problem. Kevin, go. We don't want you anyway. Maybe you'll come to your senses. But we just don't want you to go and start telling people stuff. I didn't take the deal. So the second group is the merchants. And the third group are the ruling class. The ruling class, these are the people, it's a combination of the spiritual people and the smartest people in the world. They're not warriors anymore. They don't need a warrior class. They don't have to be big and strong. So this ruling class are of privileged elites, believe that they are genetically superior to everybody else on the planet, and that they, and only they, are smart enough to govern the planet. That's their belief. That's the globalist belief. They don't want elected democracies. And even when you set up an elected democracy, it's a big scam anyway. Think about the European Union. The European Union is run by and controlled by unelected officials. There's no democracy there. And the privileged elite don't want democracy anyway, because they think, why would we want the peasants, the dummies, the ones who can be manipulated and controlled by the media? We don't want these stupid people electing politicians, because they'll just elect somebody who says the right thing. but not somebody who's going to do the right thing for the betterment of society. That's the privileged elite class's philosophy. And someone says, well, that's not right. And for those of you who are American, that's un-American. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's actually 100% American, because some of you don't even know the American history. When America was started, do you know who could vote? We're a democracy. No, we're not. We're a republic. A democracy is where everybody votes on every rule. A republic is when you vote for a representative and that person makes the decisions on your behalf. It's different. But we weren't a real democracy or even a republic. America, for those of you who don't know, when it started, you know who could vote for elected officials? Only one group of people. You had one prerequisite. You had to be a landowner. If you didn't own land, you weren't allowed to vote. Women were not allowed to own land, so women were not allowed to vote. These are our founding fathers, by the way, the most wonderful people in the world, our heroes. Screw the women. We don't want them voting. So these are the people that we put on the dollar bill, praise, President's Day, patriots. Really? So these people said only landowners could vote, which means only the rich people can vote. And the reason was, when you read the papers, they said, if you ain't smart enough to make money and own land, you don't qualify to vote. You ain't smart enough to vote for the right guy. And of course, only men were allowed to be voted on. Women were not allowed to be in politics. And forget about the race. If you were black, of course, you were slaves back then anyway. You didn't have a prayer. That's another thing. So you had to be a U.S. citizen first, and of course you had to own land. Then it changed later. So think about that. So those are the three objectives of the globalists. No hunger, starvation, or poverty. That's number one. No crime. That falls into that whole band. But it's primarily hunger, starvation, and poverty. If that's eliminated, crime will automatically go down. Number two, no wars. Number three, to have three classes of people. The followers, which are the majority, like 90% of the population on the planet Earth will just be followers. They'll have a decent life. They'll be consumers. They'll be like the old peasant class. The difference is they will have a decent life. They'll have enough stuff to be happy. They'll watch TV. They'll drink a beer or wine or sake. They'll eat McDonald's, and they'll get fat, and they'll be tired. They'll watch TV. They'll be very suggestible. We can manipulate them and control their thoughts and actions. They'll go into debt. They'll buy a bunch of stuff. Then they'll die. Perfect. Just stay out of the way. Just do all the BS work around the world. Perfect. We need these little worker bees. Second group, the merchants. All right. You want to start a business? Good. We need these people. This is the globalists talking. The globalists are talking, and they say we need entrepreneurs. We need people like a Jeff Bezos or a Stephen Jobs to come up with technology and come up with ideas to make the world better. We need these people that have some drive, that want to make some money, that want to go out there and hustle and work and risk their own capital and risk failure. We need this because who are the followers going to work for? If there's no big companies hiring, what are the followers going to do? So you need this class of people, these merchants, these go-getters. And then the third class is us. This is what the rulers say. So the third class is us. We're the rulers. We run the show. We basically have the agenda. We make the rules. And if you just shut up and do what you're told, 100 years from now, because it's not a 10-year plan, 100 years from now, planet Earth will have no poverty, no hunger, no starvation. People in Africa, people all throughout the world that are sleeping on floors right now, in huts or houses without running water. People that have no access to a hospital. So if they break a leg, there's nothing they can do. People have birth defects, they have no hospital to go to. Think about this, crime everywhere. All that's going to be gone. Wars stopped. People all around the world, their standard of living and quality of life is going to come up to a standard that the majority of people on planet Earth have never even seen before. This is the agenda. And of course, we, the globalists, will be in charge of everything. Because we're the only smart ones. So that's the plan. That is the globalist plan, everyone. Next week, I am going to tell you how they are making that happen. I'm going to tell you the steps that are in place right now, that are happening to you, that you don't know about, to make that occur. When I reveal that to you, now you will automatically see what's being done for you for the first time, and you will say, oh, he's right, that son of a gun, Kevin Trudeau. He's right, that's exactly what they're doing. Your eyes are going to open. You're going to feel like $1 million because now it's like you can say, the strings that are on me that I'm being manipulated by, you can just say, cut, 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 and go, I'm free. I'm free, baby. I can live the life the way I want. I can think the way I want. I can act the way I want. And I no longer are going to be controlled. And if I choose to be in the follower class, if you choose to be in the follower class, hey, that's fine. That's okay. If you choose to be in the merchant class, that's okay. You can't choose to be in the ruling class. That's by bloodline. But you can be in that one of the two classes, and again, these are the three main ones. One of those two, and live a blissful, happy life, knowing that you're not controlled, that you're doing your life, you're living your life by choice and by design. And it's by your design that you're living your life. You choose it. One time, I remember years ago, this must have been, I'm 60, I'm 72, right? How old am I? I'm very old. But years ago, in my 20s, I was with my buddy in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and we went out to Daytona Beach to hit the clubs. We came home very late. I think the sun was coming up. We all know this. And the next day I woke up and I had a splitting headache. I had a hangover. And my buddy came in that day around 10 o'clock, and I was just getting out of bed, and I had this horrible hangover. And he said, "You look terrible." And I go, "I feel worse." And he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I go, "There's nothing to be sorry about. I chose to feel like crap today." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Last night I made a decision. And that decision was I was going to drink heavily with my buddy. And we were going to dance with some girls, laugh, and have a good time. And then take a cab home because I didn't want to die. But I made a decision that I was going to drink copious amounts of alcohol. And back then the drink was kamikazes. And me and my buddy Dan would drink these kamikazes down, and we danced with some pretty ladies, and we had a nice time, and had some good, clean fun, and we hopped a cab and went home, boom, passed out. Next day, felt like crap. So I said, when I made that decision to drink all those kamikazes last night, I also made the decision to feel like crap today. So don't feel sorry for me. This is by choice. It was by my choice. Now, am I regretting my choice? Well, no, I had a great time last night. It was worth it. So the point is, you can live your life by choice. Think about that. So next week, I'm going to talk about, you don't want to miss next week, how the globalists are making this happen. And when you learn that, you will be free. You'll be able to live your life by choice. By the way, if you're not a subscriber, click the subscriber button here. Make sure you write some comments in because that helps the algorithm so we can get higher up. And share this with everyone you know. Get this message out. All right. What's next on the agenda? Am I going to take some calls today? By the way, you fellas, you geniuses over here, it says, again, military time. So who's ever in charge of the clock, I know they're all pointing to somebody. They're all pointing to each other. Whoever's in charge of the clock, will have a come to Jesus meeting today or tomorrow. Got to tighten up, fellas. All right. Hold on. That was I'm former insider. So everything I just talked about, that's because now I'm changing. Kevin Trudeau movie critic. So now I'm the Kevin Trudeau movie critic. All right, so let me tell you about my movies. By the way, if you have seen any of the movies that I recommended over the last couple of shows and you like them, put that in the comments as well. Let people know that they're great movies. I got 2 movies for you this week to highly recommend and endorse. Some of you have never heard of this. Some of you may have seen them, but I'll tell you about both of them. The first one is a movie from the 70s. It features 2 magnificent stars, Paul Newman and Robert Redford. Now, Mike Siegel, you hear me always talk about Mike Siegel. He's the 10-time world champion pool player, winningest pool player of all time. He's probably watching the show right now. Good friend of mine. We talk all the time. And he was the technical advisor in a movie called The Color of Money with Paul Newman and Tom Cruise, and that movie is kind of the Mike Siegel story. But anyway, Cruise and Paul Newman became friends in that movie. And Mike Siegel tells me great stories about Paul Newman. But this movie, made in the 70s, is called The Sting. S-T-I-N-G. The Sting. With Paul Newman and Robert Redford. The Sting. There's no sex in it. There's no nudity. There's no cursing. It's a movie. It's got a story. It's got twists and turns. It is a spectacular movie. And I think it won an Academy Award that year for Best Picture. I'm not sure. I think it did. But it is a highly entertaining movie. It's a wonderful movie to watch with your buddies or on date night with your lover, with your spouse, or on a date. It's a great movie for either men or women. It goes across. It is a wonderful, entertaining movie. I hope you enjoy it. And why do I recommend movies? Not just for entertainment value. You will learn about human motivation if you watch this movie. And if you understand how each character is being motivated or being manipulated by tapping in to their inner uncontrollable drives and motivation. So it's called The Sting. The next movie is called Finding Forrester. Have you guys ever heard of that movie? Anybody here? No? Of course not. No one's ever heard of this movie. Finding Forrester features a world-famous actor by the name of Sean Connery. James Bond, the original James Bond. Sean Connery is in this movie. It's about a writer. It is a fascinating movie. Again, pay attention to the characters, pay attention to the lines, pay attention to the motivations. You learn about human behavior You learn what moves another person to act irrationally or uncontrollably. You learn how to push people's buttons. You can control your whole life. When you learn that and you understand it, you will be the master of your domain because you then can control your mind. It's a wonderful movie. There is no sex, there's no violence, there's no swearing. It's a G-rated, I mean, it's a PG, I think, because it's got maybe some adult themes in there, but it is a wonderful film. I think it won some awards as well. It is also a movie that is good for either women or men or both at the same time. I hope you enjoy that and let me know. So that's Kevin Trudeau, movie critic. All right, now next is my book recommendation of the week. And again, if you've read some of the books that I've given on my recommendation, feel free to put that in the comment section. You can put that in the comment section so that people can see that the books are good and how they've helped you. What are your wins from the books I've recommended? All right, so this week's recommended book. This was a book that was given to me back in the 70s. This book was written, copyright. Does it have a copyright in here? Yes. No, that's the wrong copyright. This book was originally written, I believe, in 1920. Early at the turn of the century. So maybe 1910, 1920, 1930, something like that. It's an old book. The good news, it's a very skinny book. It's not very big. The book was given to me, and when it was handed to me by a guy, this guy was, in today's money, he's a billionaire. And he said, Kevin, you are a go-getter. That's why you will make it. And he handed me this book. And he said, read this book to always remind yourself to be a go-getter. The book is called The Go-Getter. Now, there's a bunch of different covers. This is just one of them. So it comes in different formats. A story that tells you how to be one. I'll tell you an interesting story about this book. Years ago, when I would hire people, I had them jump through some hoops of flame because I wanted to only hire people that absolutely 100% wanted to work for me, my company, and wanted this job very badly. And I wanted to see how bad they wanted. How much did they really want it? So when somebody would come in for our interview, we had an interesting interview process. Back then, we used to run an ad in the newspaper. People would then send in their resume via mail. We'd call them up on the phone and say, yes, we got your resume. We're having an interview for you on Friday night at the Westin Hotel at 7 p.m. Great. And it was a group interview. Every single person who applied for the job were told to come at 7 o'clock at the Westin Hotel or the Holiday Inn or whatever hotel we had for the interview. They didn't know it was a group interview, but they were told to come. So the first thing we did is we had somebody at the door with a clipboard with all the people that were invited. And when somebody came in, the first thing was if it was a man, if he wasn't dressed up in a suit and tie, we'd say, I'm terribly sorry, you don't meet the dress requirement. You're no longer going to be considered for the position. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't even let him into the room. If they were disheveled, if their clothes were wrinkled, if their shoes wasn't shined, the person at the front door would just say you don't qualify. This is a job interview. It's like a first date. Are you going to make a good impression? Obviously not. We're not interested. And we move them along. When the person came, we'd say, have a seat. Mr. Trudeau will be starting the meeting in a few minutes. We'd write down the time that they came. Some people came a half hour early. Obviously, the person who came the earliest, that was a check mark in their favor. Next, at 5 minutes to 7, At 5 minutes to 7, remember the appointment was at 7 o'clock. At 5 minutes to 7, we shut the door. And the person stood there and said, "We're terribly sorry you're late. You don't qualify." Person would say, "It ain't 7 o'clock yet." No, if you're not here at least 5 minutes early, you're late. We're not interested. This is the interview. You're trying to get the job. You're clearly not that serious. We're not interested. It just shows that they're not thinking. And we don't want that person. So now the rest of the people would be in a room. So in the room, I'd go up and I'd say, "Let me tell you about the company and our culture and the products we sell. Because you need to know, is this a company, a corporate culture that I want to be a part of? And is this a company's, do I want to be a part of selling this product to the public? Because if you're not, then this is not a good fit for you. Then let's save each other time and you can say, this is not for me." It's like a first date. So they came in, I would explain the company, the corporate culture, the products we sell. Then I'd say, "Have any questions about that?" Some people would have some questions. Then I'd say, "Let me tell you exactly what your job is. Exactly what your day is going to be like. Because if you don't want to do this job, I'm trying to tell you exactly what it's going to be like, so there's no surprise. If this doesn't work for you, then you can leave and it's no harm, no foul. We both save each other time." So then I explain the job in detail. Number one, it's from 9 o'clock till 5. You have to show up 15 minutes early, otherwise you're considered late. The lunch hour is 1 hour. You can either eat at your desk or go. If you need more time, we go through the whole day. This is what you do. You do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. This is who you report to. Here's the dress code. Here's how time off works. I go through the whole thing. Any questions? Answer the questions. Great. I go, "Now, what I need you to do is follow these instructions. I want you to send me a letter and send it to this address," and I'd write it on the board, Kevin Trudeau, and I'd write down the address. "Send me one page, one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, one paragraph, why you think you'd be the best person for this job." That's it. And then we'll get back to you. So number one, I want to see if a person can actually follow instructions. And I want to see how they address the envelope and how they write the letter. So I got one envelope. It was written in crayon. I'm looking at it laughing. I mean, obviously their kids were home or whatever. They couldn't find a pen, so he used the crayon. But clearly I don't want that guy working for me if he's that stupid to send to the boss a letter addressed in crayon. I just threw it away. The next one, I open it up. It's a 3-page letter. They don't follow instructions. I said one 8.5 by 11, one paragraph. I throw that one away. So number one, I see, do people follow instructions? Then the ones who qualified, some people wrote it in hand. So one guy took a piece of paper like out of a notebook, ripped it off, so it's got all these little things on the side. I'm like, really? I mean, threw that one away. So the people that qualify, then we would do the next thing. My secretary would call up and say, "Okay, we got your letter. You qualify for the next step in the interview process. We need you to go get a book called The Go-Getter, read the book, and then write an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, one side of one page, why you think you are the go-getter. And you can use an example of how you've been the go-getter in the past." So then a guy calls back and he said, "I can't find the book. It's out of print." So my secretary says, "Well, clearly then you are not the go-getter." So we're crossing your name off the list. Because the go-getter is the story of a guy who is told by his boss they're considering to give him a raise, a big promotion, but they're testing him. His boss says, "I need you to go to this street, this location, and get this blue vase. And here's the money, this is how much it cost." But it's a wild goose chase. It's a test. That street doesn't exist. The shop doesn't exist. And when he finds the actual shop where it is, it's like 10 times the price. And he has a deadline when he has to deliver it to his boss. But the go-getter in this book brings home the blue vase. His mantra is, it shall be done. He made a decision. He's going to do it, that's it, period. Come hell or high water, as we used to say. So the go-getter is somebody who gets the blue vase, which means does the impossible, jumps through hoops of flames, meets the deadline, gets the ball across the finish line, has an objective, and no matter what obstacle is in the way, he reaches the objective. That's the go-getter. So this book was out of print. So the first thing is, if somebody couldn't find the book, they clearly they weren't the go-getter. So, like this guy says, "Oh, I looked for it, I couldn't find it." Okay, well, I don't want you working for me. Interestingly enough, everybody else found it, and I would ask them, "How did you find the book?" Well, I called the bookstore. They told me it was out of print. So I started calling antique bookstores, used bookstores. I had to call 20 before I found it. He goes, and obviously other people are doing this too, because I called 2 of them and I said, "Well, you're the 3rd person who called. We're out of them." Because we had 2, but they're gone. A go-getter is somebody who makes it happen. This is a short little story, and it's an old story. But if you read this book and you understand, if you want to be successful in life, there's going to be blue vases that come up in your life. Little challenges, little things that you either say, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Oh, I tried, but I couldn't find the book, Kevin. I tried, but I couldn't find that restaurant you were talking about. Let me tell you another funny story. See, go-getters don't try. They do. I had a secretary. And I said, I'm on a date on Friday night, downtown Chicago. And there's a restaurant called the Pump Room. And the Pump Room is where Frank Sinatra goes, or went. John F. Kennedy went back in when he was president. Any major celebrity or big politician, if they were going to have dinner in Chicago, this is back in the 80s, they would go to the Pump Room. And so the Pump Room was a fancy schmancy place. There was a booth in the Pump Room called Booth 1. And the only people that got Booth 1 were celebrities. And so when you walked in, they were seen. Because back then, celebrities dressed up, they went out, they didn't want to be hidden in the back like today's celebrities. Celebrities in the old days wanted to be, wanted to be seen. They wanted to be in the newspaper. They wanted publicity. So they were out, having a time. So I called the restaurant. I said, "Hi, I'd like to make a reservation for Friday night." Guy said, "I'm terribly sorry, sir. We're booked for about 4 months." "Oh, is there any way I can get squeezed in, maybe at the bar or something?" "No." "Okay." Hung up the phone, and I said, "Well, we just hired this new secretary. Let me see how good she is, because I know I can get the table. Just making a decision. Remember, success is a decision away. Because all of a sudden, as soon as the guy said, no, it's unavailable, to me, it's like, am I going to choose that this is a blue vase or not? You don't have to. But I said, if I choose this is a blue vase, I'm getting that table on Friday night. I guarantee it. So I called up my secretary and I said, "Hey, there's a place called the Pump Room. I have a date on Friday night. I want to go to the Pump Room. Can you get me a reservation?" She had read the book. And I said, "This could be a blue vase." She goes, "I'll get you a table." She called back an hour later. No, I'm talking maybe 15 minutes later. She called back. This is before the internet. You had to call. She goes, "I got you a table at 8:30 on Friday night." "In the Pump Room?" She goes, "Yeah." The Pump Room. Yeah. I'm thinking, I just called there. That was fast. I'm not going to ask how she did it. I'll ask her later. So Friday night I go. I walk in with my date. "Hi, I'm Mr. Trudeau. I have a reservation." The guy goes, Mr. Trudeau, we're so happy to have you here. How was your trip in from Canada? And I'm looking at the guy going, what did she tell them? Because the Prime Minister of Canada used to be a guy named Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Now his nephew Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister, or his son. So Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada. And I said, lovely, thank you, thank you. He goes, we have booth 1 for you, sir. I'm thinking, what did she tell the guy? So I sat down on booth 1. There's like, 10 different waiters coming over. Mr. Trudeau, how can we help you? So glad to have you in. How was your trip in from Canada? Lovely, thank you. The girl I'm with is going, what are they talking about? I don't know. So after the meal, of course, the next day I called my secretary and said, I clearly wasn't the Prime Minister of Canada. She says, no, you weren't the Prime Minister, but he has a son. And I said, you can't do that. Okay, you can do it once in a while, but don't do it that often. But the point is, she got the table, the go-getter. And then there was a guy, some of you know Danny Bonaducci, the redheaded kid from the Partridge Family. So Danny and I were in New York, and I was on a show as a guest, and I talked about the go-getter and finding the blue base and everything, and he said, hey, Trudeau, let's go to this restaurant in New York. It opened about 3 months ago. It's the hottest restaurant in town. All the celebrities go there. It's like impossible to get in. I said, well, how are we going to get a table? He goes, oh, I'll be able to get a table. No problem. 7 o'clock Saturday night, we'll have dinner. He said, I'll bring my wife. You bring a date. I said, fine. He says, so meet me there at 7. So I walk in at 7, a little early. I'm always early. I wait, have a drink at the bar. Danny comes in. He says, let's go get our table. I said, great. So I take my drink with my date. He's with his wife. We walk up, and he says, reservation for the Mick Jagger party of 6? And the guy goes, yes, absolutely, yes. Is Mr. Jagger here? No, he'll be here shortly, but we'll be seated. That's what Danny says. And I'm going, I can't believe he's doing this. We sat down. We waited about 15 minutes. He calls the waiter and goes, I don't think Mr. Jagger is coming. And the waiter just smiled like, yes, sir. I says, Danny. He goes, I do this all the time. Danny says, I do this all the time. I says, you're so unethical. You're so unethical. He goes, hey, I'll be the unethical one, Kevin, in our relationship. In our friendship, he goes, I'll be the unethical one, you be the ethical one. I do not, under any circumstances, suggest that you do that. I'm just sharing with you a funny antidote of kind of the blue vase. But the blue vase, the guy did everything legal, honest, and ethical, unlike Mr. Bonaducci in that particular instance, or my secretary. So this is a great book. Highly recommend and endorse that you read the book. It is really, really spectacular. So really great book. All right, a couple things here. I'm going to go to the phone lines. Next week, I mentioned I'm going to talk about how the globalists are manipulating you and how they're going to make their aims happen. I am also going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10 foods you should never eat. So for a thumbnail, fellas, remember that? The 10 foods you should never eat. The 10 foods you should never eat. Next week, the 10 foods you should never eat. And if you eliminate or at least reduce these foods from your diet, and I'm going to tell you the alternative, by the way, so what the replacement is. But if you get rid of these, I guarantee you are going to feel better, have more energy, have more vitality. It is going to be spectacular. You're going to love that. So that's next week. And we are going to go to the phone lines. Yeah, that's next week. That's next week. I got a whole bunch of stuff for next week. So make sure you tune in for next week. Lastly, I am doing one-on-one live Zoom sessions for 1 hour each. And for those of you who have had a one-on-one live Zoom session, you can put a comment in the chat, tell people about your experience. I can tell you, when I get somebody on one-on-one on a Zoom, the first thing I always say is, what would you like to talk about? And people say, I have a business question. I have a marketing question. Most of the time people say, can you look at my energy? I go, well, where do you feel like you're stuck? Well, I'm trying to make money and not that ever works. I don't feel I'm on my purpose. Sometimes I have a good day, sometimes I have a bad day emotionally. My relationship sucks. I'm single, I can't attract a person. Everyone I get into never works out good. Blah, there's some issue, there's some problem in life, some challenge. Usually it's a reoccurring pattern. And I go through and I ask questions and I do my thing. I look into your field, I see where your engrams and samskaras are, I blow them out. I do different things, and invariably, the response, I have a stack of comments of people that I've given one-on-one sessions to, and many of them are business professionals that said, the business advice, I've made millions of dollars. I've had very successful business people from around the world get these one-on-one sessions and have spectacular results. So I'm doing a few of them, and the reason I'm doing them is to help pay my legal bills. As you know, I have over $1.5 million in outstanding legal bills, and the bills run around $100,000 a month. This is what the government does to you. And I'll talk about that in a future episode, how the government uses the court system to basically wipe you out financially. So I'm going to do one-on-one sessions for anyone who wants to make a contribution to my legal defense fund of $5,000 or more. So here's the website. What is the website again, William? Is it KT? Are we putting it up on the screen? KT Legal Fund? I don't see it on the screen there. Is it on the screen over there?
I don't think you're
You didn't do it? Okay, so it's ktlegalfund.com. All right, so it's the initials ktlegalfund.com. Maybe we can put that in the chat, Brian. We'll also put this on the Telegram channel, ktlegalfund.com. ktlegalfund.com, and also put in the chat the Calendly link, maybe. We have that on the Kevin Trudeau Fan Club Telegram channel, where you can just punch on the Calendly link, and it shows the times that I am available. You pick on the day and time that you want a live, personal, 1 hour one-on-one with me, and then you make a contribution of $5,000 to my legal defense fund, and I will gift you that 1 hour. Look, I've done these, and I know that's a lot of money. But the reason is my time is just too valuable. There's only so many hours in the day, and from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed, I am working on the show, my books, the Global Information Network, the fan club, the Zoom calls, World's Best Nutritionals and Organics, that new corporation, Trudeau Consulting, preparing for the Global Information Network, Dream Weekend coming up. The day is amazing, and I love every second of it. But I do need to pay the lawyers. When you make a gift to the Legal Defense Fund, you're activating the power of giving. You're giving. Yeah, you're getting a 1 hour with me. And yeah, it's worth it for sure, because the stack of comments I've had from the ones I've done in the past, people have just reported, miracles happening in their life. Saying, you got in the first 10 minutes, something that was in my memory I hadn't thought about in 30 years. Well, I see it. So I go back to a time, and I point to it and I light it up. People feel it and see it, and they remember. It's like, oh my God. And we blow out the charge that's there, and sometimes there's whole shifts in their life. But I can tell, sometimes it's almost like a psychic reading. I'll say, all right, let me tell you everything that's going on in your life. You're probably having this happen, this. Yes, oh my God, how do you know that? I go, because I can see it, it's in your field. I go, then it's active energy that's attracting that into your life. It's going to attract it for the next 100 years unless you get rid of it. So let's get rid of it in the next 30 minutes. Boom, 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 and we blow that out. I give business advice. People say, I want to do an ad. Can I show you, do a screen share? Can I show you my website? What would you do different? I do that. So whatever you want. But if you want to get a one-on-one, click on that link, go to ktlegalfund.com. And I know a lot of you, $5,000 is a stretch. Don't get into financial difficulty. But if you can make any contribution of any amount to the Legal Defense Fund, you can go to ktlegalfund.com. Even if it's $50 or $100 or $20, any contribution would be greatly appreciated. Because my lawyers are about to drop. They said, look, we have $1.5 million in legal bills. Unless we can knock this down substantially, Kevin, you're going to have to represent yourself. And that's what the government is trying to do. They're trying to get the lawyers to basically say they have to pull themselves off my case. And then if I'm representing myself, we all know where that's going. Not anything good. So that's that. All right, I'm going to go to the phone lines here in just a moment, but I want to read a powerful quote from a former president, Teddy Roosevelt. And pay attention to this because you've heard the term SNIOP before, someone who is susceptible to the negative influence of other people. It's called the SNIOP, someone who's susceptible to the negative influence of other people. So he said this: it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit actually belongs to the man who is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and makes mistakes, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Be the man in the arena, ladies and gentlemen. Be that person who strives valiantly, who makes mistakes, who errs and comes up short again and again, but dares greatly. Think about that quote. And think about all the critics. It's not the critic who counts. Let's go to the phone lines, shall we? Do we have anybody on the line? Some people think these calls are staged or something. They're not. These are real calls. It's a real phone. Kevin Trudeau here. You're live on the air.
Oh, Kevin?
Yes.
Hey, oh my God, I've been following you for like 4 years. This is the first time I'm speaking to you.
What's your name?
Ramsey.
Randy, and you're calling from where?
Ramsey, New Orleans.
Oh, good. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I have two questions. It's fine if you just want to answer one of them. I don't know if you want me to ask both.
Okay, go ahead. Start with the first one.
Okay, so how come, like, with the globalist stuff, how come a lot of celebrities openly like praise Satanism, and a lot of like the top heads of companies happen to be pedophiles, and a lot of like the Balenciaga clothing brand was like a bunch of pedophile books in the background, and then they were caught for it. A lot of it sounds like they're pretty like pedophilic satanic people. Okay, well, first off, let's deal with some facts. You could say, why is it that there's so many black people in prison? You could say, why are there, I mean, think about what we say. How many celebrities embrace Satanism? So where does that come from? I know celebrities, Fran Dressler, she's an Orthodox Jew. I know other celebrities who are Baptists, who are born-again Christians, who practice Hinduism, Kabbalah. I don't know a single celebrity who practices Satanism. So we hear from some of the mainstream media people that, oh, there's a lot of celebrities involved in Satanism. Well, first off, the celebrities aren't involved they're not members of the global elites. even if they're a popular singer. So it doesn't matter if they practice Kabbalah or Judaism, or if they're born again Christian, or if they're Hindu, or if they're an atheist, or if they're a Catholic, whatever religion they follow. And there is a satanic religion, but it's not very big. There's not a lot of people that involved in that. So that's the Satanism. The pedophilia, pedophilia is, here's another question. What's the percentage of rapists in prisons by race? So then you would say, now you want to go down this road? Why is it that there are so many black rapists? That the highest percentage of rapists are black? Is that something inherent in their DNA? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. And you could say, well, maybe they are targeted by the police, and maybe there's just as many white rapists or Indian rapists or Korean rapists as black rapists. Okay, or Arab race or rapists. Pedophilia is clearly some type of illness and sickness. Now, people who are in positions of power, we know the story of Jeffrey Epstein. I can tell you a lot about that, which I'm not going to on this episode. But people who are in power, whether you're a president like a Bill Clinton who's been on Epstein's plane, whether you're a powerful person, the need for stimulation, whether it's through drugs, through something that's a sexual deviant act, pedophilia, is very high. However, if you look in prison, remember, I was in prison for a while. If you look in prisons, I was there at MCC Chicago, Metropolitan Correctional Center in Chicago, which is a holding tank. So if you get charged with a crime and you're waiting trial, or if you're waiting sentencing, you are there. There were guys who were convicted of pedophilia, old guys who were charged with assaulting somebody below the age of 16. Guess what? None of them was a wealthy, powerful guy. They were broke guys on welfare. So now, if we look at the percentage of people that are actually in prison who've been charged with and convicted of pedophilia, we would say, why is it that most of them are broke welfare people? You follow me? So when we think of something that we hear in our mainstream media, and by these guys who talk not from an experience base, you are right. You have heard people all over the internet saying that the elitists are pedophiles, that the elitists are Satanists, and you've also heard that the elitists are shape-shifting lizards that eat other human beings. You've heard that too, by the way. Okay, number one, they're not lizard people. And yes, some of them are pedophilia, involved in are pedophiles or pedophilia, and some of them may get involved in Satanism. I haven't seen any of that. The pedophilia I have, but let's define it. These guys that are in these powerful positions, they like younger girls, usually 16, 17, 18, right around there. They're not going after 12-year-old, 6-year-old, things like that. And I'm not suggesting that even 16, 17, 18-year-old girls are okay. Of course not. But it's when you think of pedophilia, the picture that normally comes to somebody's mind is some guy in their 60s going after some 5-year-old or 6-year-old girl, and that just doesn't happen. That's just not in that realm. But the point is, there are people that are drug addicts. There are people that are cross-dressers. And of course today that's perfectly okay. Cross-dressing is, I guess, fine now. But back in my day, when you found the Nazi regime, remember, they were Hermann Goering was a cross-dresser. He dressed in women's clothes. Hitler and a lot of them were addicted to methamphetamines. So the globalists are a group of people similar to any other group of people, and in that group you will have some bad eggs. Just like you go to prison and you start taking races and say, why is it that the majority of people in prison are of one race? Is it because that race is inherently criminal? Think about it.
No.
Same thing. Are globalists inherently pedophiles? Inherently is it in their DNA? Are they inherently sex addicts? Look, at the end of the day, when a person is very, very powerful and making lots of money, they need tremendous amounts of stimulation. So there's a higher percentage of alcoholism, higher percentage of drug addiction, higher percentage of infidelity, running around with, outside of marriage and things like that. I haven't seen any Satan worshipers, although I've heard lots of people talk about it. And when I've talked to some of these hosts and say, hey, give me the evidence, the real evidence that somebody is a Satan worshiper, I never get it. I hear the stories. Give me the real evidence someone's a lizard person, a shape-shifting lizard person eating others. I don't hear it very often. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does.
All right, Randy.
I had one more question.
Go ahead, Randy.
So, burning desire. So I just started a copywriting business, and I'm doing well. I already got my first client, and it's going I'm not worried about how it's all manifesting greatly. In terms of how much you think about it, I'm having trouble repeating it in my head every second of the day. It's more like throughout the day, but I'm still determined, but it's not like in my conscious thought every single moment of the day. Is that something I should strive for?
Good question. I'm going to answer this for everybody on the phone. So I'm going to hang up from your call. Randy, it was great talking to you, but I'm going to answer this for everybody as well.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day. Bye-bye. All right, so this is a great question. It's about burning desire. When you have a burning desire, does it mean that you're thinking about that every second of the day? No. I'm hungry. When I'm done with the show, I'm going to get something to eat. So I'm thinking about food. I'm thirsty. I'm thinking about drinking some water. We think about things throughout the day. Generally, though, there's two categories. Things we don't want and things we do want. I'm going to drive home and I hope I don't get stopped for speeding. I don't want to get a ticket. That's thinking about what you don't want. Thinking about what you do want says, I'm going to drive home, the weather's really bad, the roads are slick, I want to get home safe. So that's thinking about what I do want. I want to get home safe versus I don't want to get into an accident. So those are the two categories. So when you want to manifest things, think about what you want as opposed to what you don't want. I want to get home safe, as opposed to thinking about I don't want to get into an accident. So those are the two basic categories. All right. So now we have what you want. I want to have a successful business. I want to make a lot of money. I want to do really well. Great. How often do you think about it? You don't have to think about it every second of the day. But what you do is for a short little period, you go through the procedure. And the process is outlined in the video, 10 Steps to Manifesting Your Goals. First, what's my current situation that I don't like? And get some contracted energy. Then second, what do I want? So if you realize what you don't like or what you don't want, that catapults you into what you do want. So now you know what you want. See yourself in possession of what you want and feel the emotions or feelings that you would feel if you actually were in possession of what you desire. So see that picture of you in attainment of your goal. Feel now as if you were already in attainment of that goal. And bathe in that. How long? well, there's a magic number, 68 seconds. Then release attachment to the outcome by saying, and if I never get it, it's perfectly okay. And then breathe in and out through your nose, release it into the universe, and still maintain that feeling, knowing that you don't have it. I don't have it, but I still feel the same way. That releases the attachment to the outcome and stops you from producing lack. So if you did that, that takes 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. What if I don't think about what I want for the rest of the day and I'm just going about my business? That's perfectly okay. Think about it this way. You go online, you go on your phone, and you order something from Amazon. You order it. And it says delivery date, 2 weeks from now. Credit card's charged. Do you think about that item every single minute of the day? No. It's been ordered. You have a delivery date. You just got a receipt in your email box. You don't have to think about it at all because it's ordered and it's on the way. When you have a desire for something and you put it out into the universe, you don't have to think about it at all. It's ordered. You placed your order with the universe and it's coming in. But then the question is, I thought I had to think about it all the time. And how is that a burning desire? If you have a burning desire for something, it doesn't mean you're thinking about it all the time, although you may, but we have other things to do in life. But the burning desire drives you to do something about it, to take action, a motivated, inspired action step to help bring that closer. So a burning desire is the drive or motivation that gets you, if you, for example, have a burning desire to weigh a certain amount of weight. You have a weight goal. I want to get on the scale, I want to say 190 pounds. If you have a burning desire, it will motivate you to get up tomorrow an hour earlier and go to the gym. If you have a burning desire, it'll motivate you to say no to the ice cream. It'll motivate you to go for a walk. You with me? Burning desire motivates action. If you really have a burning desire, it'll motivate action. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to listen to an audio. I'm going to go to that seminar. I'm going to get a one-on-one with Kevin. And it also may motivate you to think about it. But you have stuff going throughout the day. You're not going to be thinking about that every second of the day. That's what burning desire is. Let's go back to the phone lines. Kevin Trudeau here. You're live on the air.
Hello, Mr. Trudeau.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Rajin, and I'm calling from Kurdistan.
Oh, from Kyrgyzstan. Rajin, nice to meet you. Do you have a question or a comment?
It's nice to meet you. You really look handsome today, Mr. Trudeau.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You can call every single time I'm on the air. We'll make sure we take your call.
Mr. Trudeau, actually, I have two questions, which they are very important for me.
Okay, go ahead.
First question is about that many weeks ago, you talked about testosterone. As you know, and you talked about that sexual activities in the Liverpool training audio that I'm talking about, you talked about that sexual activities through the history has been very important. And nowadays, such a thing as pornography has been, it's been free. And when you go to on a Google or do it, you can go through lots of websites. What do you think of this? What do you think of pornography? Does it harm? Some scientists, they say that it's not harmful. Some they say it's harmful. In the religion way that if you think about it, they say it's harmful. But I think, this is my opinion, I think that Globalist Agenda, as you said, wants to decrease the amount of testosterone that men have in their body. I just want to know, what do you think about this?
Okay. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to answer that for everybody on the air, okay?
Can I ask you that other questions that I had?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm calling from Kurdistan, and as you know, Kurdistan has been separated between 4 countries. And I want to know if this is a globalist agenda plan. We have some agreements such as Sykes-Picot or Lausanne, and when the Osmani empires was go away, the Kurdistan, through the time, we never had a country. We always have been, Syria killed us, Iran killed us, Iraq killed us, and everything. What do you think of this?
I'll talk about that as well. Thanks for calling very much, and have a super day, okay?
Trudeau, goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, 2 good questions. First one is about testosterone and about pornography. That came up last week as well. All right, here's how it works. If, let's say, pornography didn't exist, so there's no magazines, no pornographic magazines, nothing on the internet. So let's say it's 200 years ago. So 200 years ago, guys and women have sexual desire. But there's no pornography. There's no magazines, there's no internet, there's no phone sex. So there's nothing you can do to stimulate. But did men masturbate back then? Did women masturbate? Yes. So if a man masturbated before there was any type of pornography, what did he do during masturbation, whether it was a man or a woman? He used his imagination. And in that imagination, what were you picturing? What was the man or the woman picturing? A sex act, something that was stimulating them in their imagination, a picture, either a picture or a video with sounds of some type of act, sexual act, that would motivate them sexually. They would have a pornographic picture in their head. That's the point, right or wrong. The imagination, ladies and gentlemen, is just as powerful as reality. There's an example we used to do on stage where we take a lemon, and I'd say, I'm going to take this lemon and I'm going to hold it and feel it and touch it. I'm going to cut it in half. And we take a person up on the stage and say, hold that lemon, hold it, smell it, cut it in half, give it a little squeeze, hold it up, smell it some more. Now bite into it. And as soon as they bit into it, there was saliva in their mouth. I said, I want everybody here to imagine that you're holding that lemon. And imagine you just did exactly what she did, cut it in half. And imagine you're holding that lemon in your hand and smelling it. And imagine that you bite into it. And I said, how many people here in the room have a mouthful of saliva? Everybody raised their hand. I go, it was just your imagination. Your imagination is as powerful. As a matter of fact, it's more powerful than reality. The body doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So if you're imagining pornography, pornographic images, it's the same as physically watching them. The imagination, the body, the hormones that are secreted, the body doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So then the question, because I remember there was an old joke years ago. When Earl Nightingale did the record album called The Strangest Secret, he said, you become what you think about most of the time. And I had a buddy of mine, we were in the seminar, Zig Ziglar was doing the seminar, and Ed Foreman. And we were in the seminar, and Zig said, Earl Nightingale discovered that you become what you think about most of the time. And my buddy, Dominic Cerulli, grabs me and he goes, that's a lie. He goes, if I became what I thought about most of the time, he goes, I'd become a woman. Because all I think about is women. And we both laughed. The body doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So then let's talk about the real question here. Is it harmful? We hear that word. Is it harmful for a man or a woman? And at the end of the day, let's be honest, mostly men are engaged in watching pornographic videos or buying pornographic magazines. Mostly. The vast majority. So if you're a man watching and you are engaged or addicted to watching porn, generally, watching porn means you're watching porn and masturbating at the same time. Before the internet, there were all these little booth places you could go to. You'd actually go in, you'd walk into a booth, which was disgusting, and the guy before you was there, pulled his pants down and masturbated while he watched the video on the screen. Or you went into a drive-in where there was a theater with pornographic movies. Or you went into a movie theater and you'd have a raincoat on or something and you'd hide, everybody was by there, but they were masturbating while they're watching porn. Now it's on the internet, it's easy to get on your phone, you can watch it anytime. So the question is watching pornographic videos or pornographic images in print, is it harmful? Well, let's define harmful. Does it drive a person to rape? There's no evidence of that. If anything, it stops a person from rape because now they've satisfied themselves, they lose all the desire. Does it, what would be the harm? What is the harmful act? What is the harm that would come if a person is engaged in pornography? Does it hurt a relationship? Well, maybe, because if a guy is watching porn all the time and satisfying himself, maybe he's not enjoying sex with his partner, and therefore the relationship can suffer. But then on the other hand, if he's watching a little porn, getting all turned on, now he runs up to the bedroom with his wife and goes crazy, and everybody's a happy, they're a little happy couple. So what is the harm? Maybe it overstimulates some of the hormonal functions in the body so that the person now can't be stimulated by his partner. And therefore the relationship suffers. And he can only orgasm by watching pornography. And maybe that happens too. So the real question is it harmful? And let's give you the answer this way. If I had a glass of scotch here and I sipped 1 or 2 ounces of scotch, maybe a Macallan rare cask, or maybe a Johnny Walker King George, and I would have 2 ounces and I'd add some water and I would sip this. The question is that harmful? Are there any health benefits? Or does it hurt the body? There's a lot of evidence that it's healthy. There's a lot of evidence that it can cause some problems. Maybe it's a 50-50 coin flip, whether it's harmful or beneficial. Maybe it's kind of neutral. But if I were to take that bottle of scotch and guzzle it down, is that harmful? Yeah, I can get alcohol poisoning and die right here on the spot. There's an old saying my grandmother said, everything in moderation. The problem is a person can get addicted to stuff. They can get addicted. And if you get addicted, what do? Now you have an addiction. How do you break the addiction? Well, you can use the Callahan technique, stop-feel therapy. You can also use Alan Carr's method, the easy way to quit smoking and quit anything. Both of them break the addiction. But you're creating an addiction. It has to be broken. So the real harm of pornography or any of these things is really breaking the addiction. There's one other element. Every person is different. Everyone watching, you're different than the next person. You're the same in the fact that you are love and light, but you're different. So therefore, how one person can react to watching a pornographic video from time to time, and how another person, it's 2 different people. Just like 2 people sit down, one has a glass of scotch, the other one has a glass of scotch. This guy has a glass of scotch, doesn't even drink the whole thing. This guy drinks it all down, wants 4 more, and he becomes an alcoholic almost instantaneously. Is it the scotch? Well, it's really the person. So the answer is pornography good or bad? Inherently, neither. But then you could say, but aren't you exploiting the pornographic actors, the men and women who are in the films? Well, first off, they make a tremendous amount of money. They may think that they're exploiting you, that they're using your uncontrollable sexual desire to make them rich. I remember I was in Australia one time, and I was on Renee Rifkin's yacht. And there was a lot of celebrities on the yacht. And there was these women that got on the yacht that they were very attractive women. And Renee said, yeah, that's Bessie Bardot. She's one of the Playboy Playmates here in town. I said, oh, and the other one's with Playboy as well? No, that's a porn star. She's Australia's most famous porn star. And I said, oh, okay. So they came over, they introduced, and the porn star said, I've seen you, Kevin, on television and blah, blah, blah. I said, just so you know, I've never seen you on video. And we both laughed, which I hadn't. I said, so tell me about your business. She goes, well, that's my Ferrari out there. She goes, I love my business. And she went on to talk about how phenomenal it was, how easy it was, how much money she made, how she enjoys sex, she liked to have sex, she picked the partners that she was going to go with, blah, blah, blah. Then you hear stories about the old day with Linda Lovelace, who said she was all drugged up. She felt that she was being raped all the time because she had to be drugged to get on the... Look, this is a complicated issue. Sex is a complicated area. Are there right and wrongs here? I am not going to be your judge, jury, or executioner, nor am I going to condemn. All I'm going to say is this. Everything is moderation. Listen to your heart. Listen to your feelings. Follow your feelings. Love people without condition and without exception. You know, there's a prayer here I'm going to read. Some of you have never heard this. Some of you have. It's called the Prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And it's said to be from him, and other people say it really was never his. It was people that were in his place. It doesn't matter who wrote it or who said it. But pay attention to these words. When you hear the word Lord, whatever God means to you, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is faith, where there is doubt, let me sow faith. Where there is despair, let me sow hope. Where there is darkness, let me sow light. Where there is sadness, let me sow joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled, but rather to console others. To be understood, no, but rather to understand others. To be loved, no, but rather to love others. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. Think about that. You are great. You are love and light. You're the pure extension and expression of God's love and light. Just as God is love and light, so are you. See that same love and light in others. Don't condemn, don't criticize. Just love unconditionally, without exception and without condition. Then the world is magical. So love. We get a ton of calls. I'm going to make one promise to everybody here. Next week, I'm going to start off with talking about, I got 2 parts I'm going to cover next week. How the globalists are manipulating you and the 10 foods you should never eat. And then I'm going right to the phone calls. We're going to take a ton of phone calls next week. A ton of phone calls. So everybody here is on the phone, and I'm just looking here at all the ones from everyone. And we got great questions. Thank you for calling. I'm sorry that I didn't get to you, but I will absolutely take tons of calls next week. If you want the one-on-one, make sure you click on ktlegalfund.com. We'll get you information on the one-on-ones there. You can make a contribution to the Kevin Trudeau Legal Defense Fund. Make sure you're on our Telegram channel, subscribe to this channel, and leave comments. That helps our algorithm. Share it with everyone you know. I'm Kevin Trudeau. Hope you're feeling better now than when we started. Remember, you have what it takes. God loves you, and so do I. Much love, everybody. We'll see you next week.